Who are you and what are you here to talk about?
Yeah, so I'm Hugh and I'm here to speak about like the Oxbridge application and kind of my own process in that.
Good. It's like,
Yeah.
so, who are you and what are you here to talk about?
Yeah, so I'm Hugh and I'm here to speak about the Oxbridge application and my journey through it.
So, for a bit of a background information, what A levels did you do?
Yeah, so I do history, politics, and economics.
And is that a good kind of combo to get you into Oxbridge? Is that just like quite a traditional thing that people would do trying to get into Oxbridge?
Um, I mean, I mean, it depends on your course, but really, just any A levels will be suitable. But obviously, you want them to be kind of tailored to your course, so you don't want to be going in for like a STEM subject on all humanities. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just
What is the course you're trying to get onto?
So for all my other universities, it's international relations and politics, but for Cambridge, it was history and politics.
Now you said was there. Is there any reason why?
Yeah, so my application was actually unsuccessful in the end. I got pulled, but yeah, sadly no offer.
But you still went through the whole process.
Yes,
It
yeah, the
still
whole
validates you to talk about the process.
Yes, yeah.
What does getting pulled mean? You said I got pulled.
Yeah, so because how Cambridge works, and I'm sure Cambridge and Oxford, and we'll come on to this, I'm sure, with colleges. So you apply, you can either do an open application or a closed application to a certain college, and each college has a certain amount of places they can give per course. And so let's say you get 20 applicants, you've got 5 places, and let's just say you've got a candidate who you think is strong enough and academically sound enough to get a place at another college, which maybe had weaker candidates applying there. So it's basically to ensure that if you're suitable for the university, you can still get an offer and a place, even if you just didn't apply to the right college or you applied to a college which was very competitive that year. So it's basically a way of making it fairer. So I passed that academic, or they thought I was academically sound enough, and then they put me forward to that, but I didn't get chosen out of the pool. So yeah.
So that's the thing I've always been confused about, the whole like collegiate system. Like, how does that work? Because it's like only those two unis do it in the UK, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think Durham does it, but to a different extent. Durham is more just like pools of residence almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, the collegiate system in Oxbridge is like your whole base of operations is in the college. So all of your lectures, your meals, your residence, they're all in the colleges. So you actually spend all 3 years when you're at university in college. So you don't go outside of and have to find like university housing or anything like that while you're there. And so it means that you're basically based in that college, and you do go off for maybe like a couple tutorials and some, I guess, other lectures elsewhere. But on the whole, you're kind of based in your college, and so yeah, it's very different to the other systems of university which we've got.
So are there benefits to that, or well, I mean, I guess there is benefits. What are the benefits to it?
I mean, I suppose you definitely get a strong sense of community within your college. So there's that aspect of you really get to know everyone, because there's obviously quite a small number of students who go there, and of those small number of students who go to university as a whole, there's even fewer who go to the colleges. So you really get to know the people you're spending a lot of time with. There's also smaller lectures, so there's more one-on-one time with your lecturers, and you have tutorials, which is literally one-on-one with a professional in your like subject area, and so it means that you really have that extra level of expertise which you can kind of go to and speak to and discuss about your subject and your passions. So yeah, I think that's definitely the benefits.
So when you say there's is this just like a massive building, or is it just like it's kind of just a thing, like a word, and it's like I'm trying to work out. I'm trying to work out if it's like a house almost at school.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to describe, because to be honest, there isn't like a hard and fast rule. They're all quite different, but most of them, all of you've got the kind of newer ones which were established in like the 20th century, which are more like, imagine like housing blocks, and they're kind of like the colleges. But the original, the older ones are usually based around a quad. So you'll have, and that's where the word quad came from. Actually, I think it was mainly used. It started to be used from the colleges in Oxford, and so you basically have like this centre like courtyard, the quad, and basically the colleges usually kind of then mapped around that. And so that's kind of how you probably, there are really famous pictures from Oxford and Cambridge which you see, and people don't really know that they are colleges, but that's what they are. And so yeah.
So do you think that like negatively affects your like social life, kind of? Because one of the things with uni is because everything's different, so you're in lectures, then you're going to have lunch with some different people, then you're in halls with different people, then you're going out with different people. But if you're in that college system, I think like what you're saying is like you're going to be with the same people for a lot of your time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is definitely aspects of that. So you're obviously going to be with the same people, I guess, throughout the day, but you can go to other colleges as well. It's not like it's if you're in, I'd say, like New College, you can't go to Magdalen College type thing. You can move around different colleges, but you spend most of your day in your own college. And also there is also evening stuff. So when you go out in the evening, you'll meet up people from other colleges, because there's I imagine there'll be the same like bars and the same nightclubs and stuff like that. So in terms of your nightlife, I'm sure you'll be mixing with people from other colleges as well.
Yeah, cool. So with the application itself, what are the kind of stages behind that? Because I know there's an interview for both Oxford and Cambridge, I believe. So what's kind of the application process?
So, I mean, this might not be very helpful, but in terms of, it's actually different for every course. So it's also different for each college. So it's kind of complex. Well, it's not too complex, but basically you write your personal statement. So that's kind of like a base, which everyone does. And then you submit it to Oxford or Cambridge. And then most courses usually have an interview and also an assessment. Some of them have an assessment before the interview, and some of them have the assessment after the interview or after you've been given an interview. So for my course, I got told I had an interview and an assessment, whereas for other people, they had to sit the assessment, and then based off their result from that, they then got told whether they were having an interview. So it kind of varies on the course, And then kind of going from there, Cambridge, I'm not sure about Oxford, but Cambridge offers an extra personal statement kind of thing. So they call it, it's basically like a Cambridge personal statement, and it's 1,000 words, and it's basically about why that course. And for me personally, I found that quite useful because, as I mentioned, I'm studying international relations at my other unis, or applying to. And for Cambridge, it was history and politics, because they don't offer international relations. So it really kind of gave me extra room to speak about why I like history and politics so much, and how that links to my interest in international relations. And so it kind of gives that level of detail to then help further your application, I suppose.
Yeah. How important is just the normal personal statement to your application, or is it like quite heavily influenced by like your academics?
I mean, Cambridge takes the stance that all parts of the application process are equally valid. But personally, grades, interestingly enough, aren't the main thing. Grades are almost just like a barrier to entry. So most of the Oxford and Cambridge courses, so for example, if you wanted to study history at Oxford, the grades you'd probably get are 3 A's, which is high, but relative to other universities, you can find much higher offers. So in terms of grades, they're more of like a barrier to entry, but often what they're assessing you on is your assessments and your interviews, and your personal statement is more of like a kind of filtering system to see whether they kind of want you just on the face value. They will look at grades though. So GCSEs are more important to Oxford than they are to Cambridge. So if you didn't get like all 8s and 9s, I mean, obviously it depends on your educational background as well. But if you didn't get all 8s and 9s, you're pretty much already out of the Oxford process, like just instantly. But yeah, so on the whole, the grades aren't necessarily the most important. They're more of just like a barrier to entry. And then it's more how your performance in your interview and assessments, which they'll look at.
Yeah. So do they, I'm trying to think about how to word this question. Do they like take people from like all kind of educational backgrounds? Because I think there's quite like a view that you have to have gone to a private school, be like highly educated, have gone through sixth form and done really well at sixth form, or are they trying to like kind of more expand their like who they're putting on their courses at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, I think both universities' stances is that they look for potential and not the actual, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they'll look at your ability to learn, is how they'll put it, and that's kind of where the interviews and the assessments kind of take into account. But they will also look at your application in context. That's why you have the interview stage, and there's so many people who don't get to that stage, because at that interview stage they will look at your application as a whole and individually. So they'll look at your background. So if you've been in a deprived or you've had a bad educational history type thing, it means that they can take that into account when looking at where you are now academically and how you've performed, and then they can assess you equally. But I mean, as much as they say that the privately educated people are still overrepresented, so I think it's like 7% of the population go to private schools, but I think it's like 30% of the student body at Oxbridge are privately educated. So there is still overrepresentation. So it's not like fully equal yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is definitely a shift towards that.
Could that be because the private schools push people to go to Oxford and Cambridge more just because they like this, what they've done for however many hundreds of years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, often those who go to Oxford, not always, but they are quite successful later on, and so that will, I guess, earn you higher wages, and then that means that when it comes to sending your child for education, you've got the resources available to then send them to private schools, and maybe then you want them to follow in your footsteps. So I don't know whether it's the schools pushing it or the parents.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure it's case by case. I do know that there are some schools which are more well known for like sending people through the Oxbridge system. So Winchester, like where Rishi Sunak went there, they're really well known for their Oxbridge like candidates. So yeah, I think it's kind of it kind of varies, I suppose.
Yeah. So how do you prepare for an interview?
So there's actually been for the assessments, oftentimes you're going to have past papers on the website. So Cambridge, I definitely know because I applied to Cambridge, so I obviously know their site a bit better. They had, for my subject, they had like past papers where they'll have like questions which were used in previous years, but they didn't give you mark schemes, which isn't the most helpful. And so there, it's kind of like how do you kind of navigate that? But in terms of the interview for Oxford, definitely there are mock interviews, as in there's literally so a student who's already there who then sits another interview, and so it kind of it shows you what to expect in terms of the kind of the tone of the setting, because obviously each interview is really individual, and so it's quite hard. So you can't like use it to kind of find out your questions and stuff like that, but you can kind of use it just to see what it's like, I guess, in terms of the atmosphere.
When you finish with uni, you mentioned like career opportunities and jobs. Do you think nowadays like an Oxford or Cambridge education is as highly respected as it has been in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just because of the whole prestige around both universities, it doesn't mean that you're going to get a job necessarily. It doesn't mean that you're going to like walk into like I don't know, like a 6-figure job. It just means that you do have that extra level which kind of sets you out from the crowd in terms of it's just something else which adds on to your application as a whole, and does often suggest quite a high level of intelligence, I suppose. I mean, I'm not 100% sure because employers are looking for different things every day nowadays, but it's I guess it's just something else which they take into account when looking at your application for jobs. But it does definitely give you some sort of competitive advantage, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, I think that's probably it, unless you have anything else to add.
No, nothing. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for coming on. Yeah, thank you.